Hi, everyone. This is Jason Eagle, your natural health authority, with another Healing Matters. You can find me on Jason Eagle QRA, strategichealing.us. Today, we are talking about birth control pills, birth control forms, but in particular, the use of birth control pills. And that includes the ones that are, for instance, inserted. That's the ones that would be. Sometimes they would insert them inside the cervix, but it also includes some of this medication. Birth control use can have a lot of problems, and I've seen it in my practice, but I'm going to go over some of the real bad stuff, in particular with what's happening right now, puts women at a much, much higher risk. And besides, there are other ways to do it that are not harmful, and I'll go over that. But you could cripple your system, and you could even potentially really harm yourself, and you just didn't know about it. So let's go into this. Birth control use and its increased blood clot risk. There's many, many risks with the blood clot. Many of these injectable medications, especially now, even the vaccine, is having high risks of blood clots. Okay, third generation oral contraceptives are linked to a more than doubled risk of potentially fatal blood clots known as venous thromboembolisms. Okay, the research from Boston University School of Medicine in Massachusetts indicates that oral contraceptives containing desogestrel and gestardine increase the risk of blood clots by a factor of 2 to 3 compared to older birth control pills containing levoestrogen or levoestrogel. Okay, the findings support earlier research about potential dangers of these third generation pills caused a scare in 1995 and resulted in a warning to doctors and pharmacists about the potential dangers. Since the warning, the number of women taking third generation pills dropped by 80%. Well, this was back in 1995. We've now since changed, and it hasn't really gotten any better. Okay. The research estimated that if women had not switched after the warning, there would have been about a 26% more cases of blood clots. Now, this is back in 95. There's a lot of cases of blood clots, especially in women, both men and women, but especially in women. Women at increased risk of heart disease would be better off avoiding the levoestrogel pills, which can lower the levels of cardioprotective HDL cholesterol. Okay, I'll talk about this a little bit. When I deal with a lot of people that are having a lot of problems with, let's say, their hormones later, women that are having a lot of hormonal problems with the hot flashes. However, even before that, there's super high levels of women that have had to have hysterectomies, that have tumors, tumors that are inside the ovaries, polycystic ovarian syndrome, tumors that are inside, and growths, endometriosis. A lot of weird stuff grows because when you are messing with the levels of estrogen, progesterone, all of this other stuff, these are all levels that normally happen when your body goes through the cycles, but also when your body gets pregnant. You also find that there's a huge increased risk of breast cancer. Okay. Birth control pills are really birth control drugs with far-reaching, potentially dangerous results to your health. Birth control pills or oral contraceptives are synthetic hormones that the body is not designed to handle. Long-term use increases the user's risk of developing serious chronic illness, as this study highlights. In addition, birth control pills can deplete the following nutrients. These following nutrients are the things that are having to do with your liver, your gallbladder. And what I find is that when people go on birth control, and especially young girls, you have a lot of young girls, and it's not just to keep them from getting pregnant. You'll find out later when I talk about this that a lot of doctors will put them on because they have bad periods, they have a lot of cramps and stuff like that. There's a better way to find that out. Now, when you go on birth control pills or the injectable or whatever it is, and you're messing with your hormones, because it affects these different nutrients and your body's ability to produce these nutrients, what it does is it cripples your body's ability to produce B6 and other vitamins, especially in the liver, which then gives you the inability to then digest fats. And when you cannot digest fats, you don't get hormones. As I've said many, many times in my previous podcasts and videos, is you have to understand that hormones are what's called fat soluble. And estrogen and progesterone and all these, including the birth control pills, are these synthetic hormones. They're bullies and they force your body to do stuff. But what it does is it eventually cripples your body's ability to produce enough of the nutrients to make your bile thin. Okay, your bile is produced by your liver and stored in your gallbladder, and it's essentially soap, and that's so that you can digest fats. And so many women, and this happens even younger, whether in their teens, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, overweight, they can't lose weight, they can't digest fat very well, therefore they cannot deliver hormones, and then they have a lot of hormonal problems, and we have a lot of people that are treating these hormonal problems by putting them on hormones and saying, well, your hormonal organs, this includes your thyroid, this includes your adrenal glands, this includes all of these different things, the antidepressant hormones and depression hormones, because depression is a hormone, happiness and joy is a hormone. Well, if you don't have fat or you cannot digest fat, you can't get the fat molecules into the cell, then hormones can't get in and outside of the cell because they have to go into a fat packet. They have to get into a fat vehicle. And if the fat vehicle is insoluble because the gallbladder didn't secrete enough bile or the correct liquidiness of bile, meaning if it's too sludgy, it cannot secrete it and it cannot go through the bloodstream and it cannot deliver hormones. Therefore, you have hormone problems. But the standard medical community basically just treats your hormone factories as opposed to the hormone transport system. So these are the vitamins. These are the vitamins that make sure that your bile is nice and thin and liquidy. That's B6, B2, B12, folic acid. These are all of the B vitamins, which are all formed in your gut, but are also formed in your liver, essentially for your liver. Vitamin C, magnesium, and zinc. These are all some of the top things that people go, I want to protect myself from this upcoming virus or this flu season. You notice that zinc and magnesium are top on the list. And so people that are on birth control are essentially crippling themselves on their body's ability. And you may take these vitamins and minerals and you may actually eat high forms of these. I eat my magnesium, I eat my vegetables and all these other things. But if you've messed with your system, then it doesn't even go in very well. You've crippled that system. I'll talk about how you fix this, but this video is really, this podcast is really about think twice before you start it, because once you've started it, you can really mess up your system. This is also going for people who are trying to change their genders through drugs. Okay, there are so many people who are on hormone therapy to try and change their gender or to diminish, or it's dangerous. Okay, you may get the gender that you want, but as I go in, you can risk yourself, your later life, for all kinds of heart attacks, brain problems, all kinds of other problems, cancer, other things that, you know, that's not what you signed up for. That's not what you thought you were going to get, but this is what it does. Okay. And this is the research. This is not just me telling you. This is coming from a Lancet. This is coming from the British Medical Journal. This is coming from another from the British Medical. Newest version of birth control pills might cause blood clots. Okay. The study found that both men and women aged 15 to 49, the number of cases of venous thromboembolism was fairly steady from 1977 to 1988. In the period from 1989 to 1993, however, the men's rate did not change, but the hospitalization rate for women was more than 16% higher. The study gives support to the hypothesis that third-generation birth control pills increase, now we're probably fourth, fifth generation, increase the risk of venous thromboembolism to a larger extent than second-generation birth control pills. And we're way past that now, because this was back in, I think, 1999. Birth control pills increase the risk of blood clots, thromboembolism, liver and gallbladder disease, heart attacks, stroke, breast cancer, and they cause depletion of many essential nutrients, as I talked about before. It would seem wise for all women to avoid taking oral contraceptives, regardless of any reason for taking them. There are other options for birth control that are far less dangerous. Now, there's another reason. If one is using birth control pills for birth control, there are far safer options, okay? And I'll talk about that. It's what's called Ovotech. But if one is using birth control pills to control their menstrual cycles, irregular bleeding, ovarian cyst, or endometriosis, they're taking a big risk with their health. The use of birth control pills is not able to correct the underlying dysfunction. There are far better, more effective natural remedies available for such as the use as natural progesterone and female supporting herbs. Many menstrual problems are related to low progesterone levels in at least half of in the last half of the cycle. Now, there are some other ways to do this. Now, first of all, you can find out what your hormones are. So what your hormones level. Now, if they put you on this stuff because they said, we tested you and just trust us, well, you can test yourself. There's a company called BioHealth Diagnostics. The number is 800-570-2000, offers a program for free testing, free fraction salivary hormones, requires only a sample of your saliva to assay female hormones. Saliva testing for female hormones has been proven to be far more accurate than blood testing of hormones. So you can find out where your levels are. And if they're putting you on this because you're bleeding too much, or you've got pain, or lots of cramps, or things like that, especially young girls when they first start their period, there are way better ways to do that. And again, as it says here, it's taking care of the symptoms, but it's not taking care of the underlying condition. So the underlying condition of whether it be nutrition deficiencies, whether we get into, there's some genetic predispositions and things like that. These are just pointers to, this is the way that your body's functioning. And if you ate this way and lived this way, you could fix that and thereby then fix your symptoms rather than just treating your symptoms. And by treating your symptoms, you could put yourself at some real high risk. Birth control pill use increases the risk of fatal embolism. Further reinforcing results of previous studies, new research from New Zealand, this is from Lancet 2000, suggests that the use of oral contraceptives may cause a nearly 10-fold increase of developing fatal pulmonary embolism. Pulmonary embolism, that's in your lungs, which you get a blood clot and it gets into your lungs and then you can die from that. Several previous case control studies have found that their use was associated with the increased risk of deep vein thrombosis. This could be in the legs, that could be throughout the whole body, and non-fatal pulmonary embolism. The incidence was somewhat higher than we expected, stated one of the study's authors, who found that 65% of women who died from pulmonary embolisms were current oral contraceptive users. That's a huge, huge number, huge correlative number. There is a direct correlation. The risk of death from pulmonary embolism in oral contraceptives users was estimated 10.5 deaths per 1 million woman years, which is much higher than previous estimates, which had put the annual incidences of 1 or 2 per 10,000 women, with a fatality rate of 1 to 2%. Risk factors for pulmonary embolisms include the past history of deep vein thrombosis, being extremely overweight, or prolonged immobility, meaning you're sitting in the wheelchair too long. You're sitting, deep vein thrombosis, people who sit at work a lot, people who sit at the computer, you're at a much higher risk, a super high risk of truck drivers of a deep vein thrombosis. Not many women truck drivers, but there are, okay? They're out there. And just by sitting around too much. and birth control pills, you could really increase this risk and really put yourself at a deep risk. Birth control pills increase the risk of breast cancer. Now, it's not just pills, as I said. There are the injectables, there are the insertables that actually have this medication in them as well. Increased risk of breast cancer. Older generation pills have a significantly increased risk of breast cancer among women with a family history of disease. In a study of 426 families, investigators found that oral contraceptives use tripled breast cancer risk among women with sisters or mothers who had the disease. The risk was confined to women who used the pill prior to 1975. Since then, birth control pills have evolved with lower dosage of estrogen and progestin, which may take safer. However, this is back in 2000, and they've still changed an awful lot. The risk, the breast cancer link, strongest among women with 5 or more cases of breast or ovarian cancer in their families. And these women, birth control use was linked to an 11-fold increase of breast cancer risk. So if you've had a mom or an aunt or a grandma who had breast cancer and died, or just had breast cancer and now they treat breast cancer better, you are at a much, much higher risk. Okay, the use of oral contraceptives needs to be considered on an individual basis, taking into account all of women's health concerns. Now, this especially includes little girls. Basically, they can start this. Let's say, you get a girl that starts early, like 9 or 12 years old. It's not uncommon for people to put, let's say we have normal kids, and they have okay, but you just don't want your kid to get pregnant. Your kid's going to be sloppy, you think, and you just want to save them from getting pregnant, okay? You want to save them from having to get an abortion, right? So let's just put them on birth control pills rather than having them be responsible, and whether it be condom use or, again, avoiding it, but because you thought it was safe. And uninformed consent among people, especially the underage, is, again, if you put them on something that you didn't ask them about and say, hey, I want you to know the risk, like, yes, you may not get pregnant, but you could also die from a heart attack or embolism or this stuff later in life, or put you at a higher risk of cancer. Are you down for that? Uninformed consent is not right. And if you're just throwing a person on this, and even as a physician who says, it's between me and the parent, this kid, they do what we tell them to do. Look out for that, because it can cause some real problems later. It can cause some real problems that can come back and bite people later, because if you've done it against a person's will and they did not consent against it, you got another problem. And that's something that you could be implicated upon, okay? There are other ways of doing this, way safer, that don't implicate and then don't put people at risk. They're fine. How do you know that? This could be 20, 30, 40, 50 years later that's a direct result that they had that problem. Let's go into it again. Birth control pill and gene defect tied to clot risk. We have a lot of these blood clot risks, okay? Two gene mutations, including one found in up to 15% of whites, and oral contraceptive use are linked to an increased risk of cerebral vein thrombosis, that's in the brain, potentially fatal disorder caused by the clotting of the brain's venous system. When women with one of these gene mutations who also take oral contraceptives have a risk of cerebral vein thrombosis nearly 150 times that of the general population. So let me ask you this. Your doctor, or you're thinking about taking this, did you have any gene testing? Did you have any testing to find out if you had this gene defect? No, they don't. They just throw you on it, or you throw yourself on it. Think it's a good idea. But if you have some of these gene defects, what's that, 150%? 150 times that. That's huge. That's like, playing Russian roulette with your body. Certain non-genetic factors, include smoking and the use of oral contraceptives, have also been linked to increased risk of thromboembolism, clotting in various sites, including legs, brain, retina, and liver. Okay, but I don't smoke. I vape, Jason. Okay, yeah, that's the same thing. Nicotine use, it's not just the bad cigarettes. And you know how many people you see out there vaping? You know how many of these pretty girls out there that I guarantee you a vast majority of them are on blood clots. I was just watching that movie 16 Candles, and the girl who's in there is like, taking birth control pills, and she gives one to the boy, and he spits it out. But she says it gives me the ability to be really reckless. Oh boy, really fun, great. But you could really be damaging your health later. And there are so many better ways to prevent pregnancy. Okay. And then what about, let's say you prevented pregnancy when you didn't want it, and now you want to get pregnant, but you can't because you messed up your system. That's another thing. I didn't get pregnant when I didn't want to, but now I want to. Now have fun trying to fix that, and have fun spending the money on that. I know so many people that have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars trying to get pregnant, and it doesn't work. And if it does, they end up with too many babies, and their body's not ready for it. And they have horrible pregnancies because of their hormonal problems. Now, this could be fixed early on. It could be fixed by not doing it right in the very beginning. Okay. The investigators also discovered that the most prevalent non-genetic risk factor for cerebral vein thrombosis was oral contraceptive use, which raised a woman's risk for the illness up to 22 times that of non-users. Okay. The researchers point out that 96% of women suffering from cerebral vein thrombosis were using the pill at the time of their illness, compared to just 32% of controls. Finally, they found out that the women controls mean the people who are not taking it. Finally, they found that women who were taking oral contraceptives, who also had the prothrombin gene mutation, that's the gene mutation, prothrombin gene mutation, risk for cerebral vein thrombosis increased nearly 150 times that of other women. It is not practical to be screened for this genetic mutation, since up to 90% of the cause of most ill health is due to dietary and environmental factors, not gene mutations. In addition, gene mutations do not have the permanent gene mutations do not have to be permanent. Did you hear that? You can change your gene mutations by what? By dietary and environmental factors. Because gene mutations do not mean that they are a death sentence. Genes are in off-on switches, and it's been shown that they can be changed. You can change these factors. You can change your genes. I thought they were fixed for life. I thought I was born, and that's it. That's what you got. No, they are changeable through these factors. They are, in particular, diet and environmental factors, where you live, how you live, what you do. There are many things that can change people's genes. You have people that have the fat gene, and exercise can change that fat gene. It can change it permanently, meaning you can go from a person who basically can't not be fat, and it's not just the reduction of calories and the burning of the calories that the exercise does. What it can do is it can change these genes that determine how they digest foods. So again, gene mutations are not permanent. They can be changed. Okay. All right. Using sound nutrition and health practices, the body may be able to self-heal some gene mutations. Excellent proven DNA repair substance can be used, including medicinal mushrooms such as reishi, pine bark, CoQ10, chaga mushrooms, the turkey tail. The mushrooms have the ability to, because the mushrooms are your nervous system. They're an external nervous system. And so we can change your whole makeup by bringing these things into the body. Okay. And they're all natural. All right. And let's get to the next part. Oral contraceptives and low HDL increased stroke risk. So there's the LDL, which low density lipids, HDL, triglycerides, total cholesterol. Your cholesterol has a lot to do with how your heart is, your whole body, everything. Now, we want good levels of HDL. Now, you can increase the good levels of HDL by eating good HDL producing foods like olive oil and all kinds of things, avocados. You know how many girls you see out there that are pretty and very fit, and they're doing their avocado smoothies and their chia seeds and all this other stuff. They're taking oral contraceptives. They're being safe and everything like that. Look at their HDL levels, and they're not what they're supposed to be. They're eating it. They're doing all that work. And then why are my HDL levels not where? So HDL levels have a lot to do with heart disease risk. The study analyzed the relationship between various blood lipid parameters and the risk of ischemic stroke in patients under 45 years of age. That's young. That's young to have a stroke. Okay. There was no relation found between risk of ischemic stroke and total cholesterol, LDL cholesterol, or triglycerides. Only low HDL cholesterol levels were shown to increase risk. I am increasing my HDL levels by eating my foods, Jason, but if you are on contraceptives, you're wasting your time many times because you're essentially popping that balloon and then it's going right out of your body, even though you're eating it, okay? Other increased risk factors include the use of oral contraceptives, high blood pressure, smoking. These increase the risk factors of this low HDL, which would put you at a super high level of heart disease, heart attack, blood clots, stroke, okay? The risk factors remain regardless of any apparent atherosclerosis. Atherosclerosis is the plaque that causes heart attacks, the plaque that forms that blocks where you have to have like a bypass, okay? Or you get the blood, or I'm sorry, the clots in terms, not clots, but the plaque deposits in your carotid artery, that increases the risk of your brain problems, okay? So what they found is if you don't have atherosclerosis, meaning you can get checked for this and they say, hey, you're fine. The authors state that although the relation between serum lipids and ischemic stroke remains controversial, low HDL cholesterol should be considered in the care of young patients regardless of detectable presence of atherosclerosis. Okay, so if you're younger, okay, this is a word to the wise to even cardiovascular people, cardiovascular surgeons, your heart doctors, these people, or if you are under the care of a heart doctor and you're young and they say, hey, you're clean as a whistle, but you are on birth control, you can have the same levels, problems of the heart disease risk and the heart attack risk with low atherosclerosis, meaning your veins and arteries are clean. They're not full of plaque, but yet with the low HDL and the increased risk of the contraceptives, the birth control pill, you're at the same level as if you were clogged up. You're just like a 70, 80-year-old person that needs a quadruple bypass because of what it does to your system, okay? In general, birth control pills increase the risk of blood clots, liver and gallbladder disease, stroke, cancer, and they cause the depletion of essential nutrients. This is why it does this. This is why we have many problems with the body, is because it robs Peter to pay Paul, and it causes you to lose these nutrients. And if you eat these nutrients, they go right through you. They don't stick. It doesn't stay in your body. Now, this is another one that you want to listen up to right now, because birth control pill use increases HIV transmission risk. Why is that important? Because people are not so afraid of HIV right now. Okay? All right. HIV has the spike protein, and the SARS-T2, the COVID-19 is remarkable for its spike protein. Okay? So if you are on oral contraceptives, if you are on the birth control pill, you are at a much increased risk of the HIV, as well as the COVID, as well as the SARS-CoV-2. I don't care about the variants or whatever. It's all the same thing because of what it does to your system, okay? HIV-infected women who take birth control pills are much more likely than other HIV-infected women to have detectable virus in the cervix or vagina. Now, this also means people that have the COVID-2, The same thing with the spike protein. You can have small levels, but increased levels that can then cause a problem where, again, people having the virus in their body as opposed to the virus then causing a problem of where you really are in deep danger. Increased risk of people with birth control pills definitely is related to this. All right. According to this study, other risk factors for viral shedding include vitamin A deficiency, gonorrhea infection, and yeast infections. Increased shedding of virus could mean a greater risk of transmission of either a sexual partner or an infant during delivery. Heterosexual transmission of HIV is the predominant mode of infection among adults worldwide. Again, this is the virus we're talking about. Of children who acquire HIV-1 from their mother, 40 to 80% are estimated to become infected during delivery. Birth control use increases that level. It is not clear why birth control pills, which contain synthetic estrogen and progesterone, should increase shedding of HIV in the genital tract. It is possible that the hormones influence immune system function, or they may change local factors in the vagina, such as the thickening of the cervical mucus, which may enhance shedding of the virus. As for vitamin A, it has long been recognized to have a central role in maintenance of epithelial surfaces and normal function of the immune system. Also, vitamin D. Vitamin D3 is about the epithelial cells. That's why it's so important with the virus that we're dealing with right now, is to have good vitamin D levels. Vitamin A and vitamin D make sure that the epithelial cells, which is also in your nose, which is also in your eyes, the mucosal membranes, which is also in your lungs, which is also in your throat. So the cells that line the vaginal tract, the urethra of the male, where we transmit these things, is also those same type of cells. And the thinness or thickness determines how quickly things get into our system. So vitamin A and vitamin D. Birth control will cripple your body's ability to utilize vitamin A and possibly even vitamin D, okay? Which is one of the major factors of protecting yourself naturally, as well as even, again, this is one of the top protocols that's being used in the hospitals. Zinc, vitamin D3, vitamin C, quercetin. It doesn't matter what kind of treatment they're putting people on these things, because it's protecting them and it's helping them to turn their health around. If they're sick, it's helping them to turn around faster. If they are not sick, it's preventing you from getting sick. Although most women who take birth control pills are not infected with HIV, these powerful synthetic hormones have the potential to cause serious health complications even in normal women. The above research study is just one example of how birth control pills can disrupt normal physiology to increase HIV shedding, as well as COVID-19 shedding in infected women. Now, men too, but men are not on birth control. You're taking birth control pills. Long-term health interests would be better served by finding a more natural option. Now let's get into natural options. Number one, we know about condoms. Okay. We also know about abstaining. Just don't do it. Find something else to do. Okay. If you are being in a committed relationship, make sure that you are with somebody that is healthy. Okay. And again, if it's about birth control prevention, number one, condoms. There are many women that are allergic to the latex in condoms. There are non-latex ones that are made out of either silicone or other one. There's also what's called the natural lamb, which is actually lamb intestine. Sounds gross, but it's not. And many men prefer that because they can feel it more. Now, it does not prevent against the transmission of venereal diseases. So if you're using that with because you're trying to protect yourself, you really shouldn't be with that person anyways. Okay. Now, if you're dealing with a committed relationship and you're talking about your husband, your wife, somebody you love, somebody that you're going to stick with, there is another way. And this goes for if you want to get pregnant too. Okay. This is what's called Ovotech. You're trying to become pregnant. You're trying to avoid pregnancy. You want to determine whether you're ovulating. You want to enhance your awareness of your menstrual cycles. During a woman's menstrual cycles, there are only about 3 days when her egg is available for fertilization. Sperm can survive up to 72 hours, 3 days in the vagina and uterus. So if sexual intercourse occurs up to 3 days before a woman is fertile, she can potentially become pregnant. Thus, there are about 6 days per month, 3 days prior to fertility and 3 days of fertility that a woman can conceive. What are those days, right? How would I know? It is scientifically well established that hormones filter into saliva and that during fertility, a ferning pattern can be seen in saliva under a high-powered magnification lens. Just prior to or during fertile days, the sample will typically resemble ferns, while during non-fertile days, only random and shapeless dots will be visible. The Ovotech is a handheld mini magnification lens about the size and shape of a lipstick holder. If you want to check whether you may be fertile, you simply make sure you haven't had anything to eat or drink for 2 hours, put a small amount of saliva on the lens and allow it to dry, insert the lens into the magnification lens, and push the little button to illuminate the lens. If you are about to become fertile, or if you are fertile, you will easily see a beautiful crystalline ferning pattern under the magnification lens. This is an easy and convenient way for you to monitor your hormonal changes and enhance your awareness of your menstrual cycle. If you track your cycles and fertility on a calendar, soon you will have a keen awareness of where you are in your monthly cycle and what is happening hormonally in your body. Cycle awareness can be especially helpful for women who tend to have anovulatory cycles, no ovulation cycles, and thus there is no infertility and no progesterone is made. If you know you haven't ovulated in any given cycle, and thus your ovary won't be producing progesterone, then you can supplement with progesterone that month and avoid estrogen dominant symptoms such as PMS. So PMS is coming from estrogen dominance. So again, you have a lot of doctors that are putting people on this stuff because they just want to manage their symptoms. I've got premenstrual cycle symptoms, or I've got, they use this a lot for migraines and things like that. However, it can be very dangerous to do this when you know about all these other risk factors, which is there's a much safer way to do this. All right. The ovulation kit that measure hormones in urine to determine fertility tend to be expensive, messy, and can only be used once. In contrast, at the cost of not much more than an ovulation kit, the Ovutech can be used over and over and has a lifetime manufacturer warranty. Magnification lens for $29.99 plus $3 shipping and handling. The number to call to get a hold of what's called Ovotech is 800-528-0559. The Ovotech offers a practical, completely non-toxic option for those who seek a reliable form of contraception and want to get off or avoid using birth control pills. When tracking the days of the menstrual cycle, the first day of menstruation, when vaginal bleeding begins, is called day 1 of that cycle. The cycle ends when the next period begins, about 28 days, but can vary anywhere between 17 and 35. The egg may become available for fertilization by sperm anywhere from day 3 to day 14 of the cycle. Now, you don't have to guess where your cycle. And as it said, basically, a lot of ovulation testing is the urine. It's expensive and it's not very practical. And you don't know from moment to moment, right? The Ovotech is a great way to find out from moment to moment where your ovulation cycle is. It's completely non-toxic. You're not adding anything to your body. You're just giving a little spit, right? And again, this is not something, again, it's very small and it fits in a little compact thing. I want to be out and about. I want to do, just as easy as you can take your pill in the bathroom somewhere, you can do this and you can find out where you're at. And then you can then adjust accordingly in terms of, now, again, if a person says, I don't really want to take any chances, okay, then use your condom. Okay. But this is more than, birth control is used, as I said, in more than just adult women to prevent. This is used an awful lot in girls who are young to prevent, and this is not just about their parents going, well, she's going to be reckless. No, it's about she's got horrible periods or she's got all these problems, and the doctor put her on that because they're trying to, and it helps. Yes, okay, but there's other ways to do that. As I said, when you look at the nutrient profile, they may have a low vitamin A, low vitamin D. There may be all kinds of other things that are the underlying condition for your teenage girl of having these problems. And we treat it naturally, and we find out where the problems. You can also, again, find out exactly what the imbalance is by getting these saliva tests for all of the hormones. And so if you are one of these parents that have one of these kids that the doctor's talking about that, why don't you check it out yourself, and you can find out what your hormones are. And then if you're low on these particular hormones, you can use, there's natural, there are bioidentical, and by adjusting those hormonal levels and also adjusting the diet, you'll find many girls that once they get into that age, it has to do with their whole hormone profile changes and their diet changes. You'll find many girls that start ovulating start menstruating. They've also changed what's the name of the saliva test? You can go online, and there's many different companies, and they're a send away kit. They send them to you, and you're just looking for a hormone saliva assay. And just go on Google or Bing or whatever. And basically, yes, you can go on the internet and just look for a hormone saliva test. And they ship it to you in a little box, and then they give you instructions about you spit into this vial, tells you, don't do it after brushing your teeth, don't do it after you just do food, blah, blah, blah. And then you put it in a little package and you send it away, and then they will send the results to you and your doctor, or just the results to you. Now, I can help you to read them and find out what to do, okay? And then again, if you want to fix the hormone problem, bioidenticals are not always the way. Yes, how do you treat low or high hormones are not just, like I said, the bioidentical. You do it through diet and behavior, okay? Some of the things that are some of the best things to actually change your hormones is exercise, and very specific type of exercise. So for sometimes it's the low intensity exercise. Sometimes for some people it's the high intensity. For some people it's mid intensity. For some it's you do it every single day. Some it's every other day. So diet and exercise is the best way to change your hormones, and change them for good. Because as I said, what you're doing is you're changing your genes. You're changing how your body operates, and which means when you change it, you're changing it for good. You're not just temporarily. It's not just like a diet where you did it so that you changed. And then once you stop doing it, then you gained all the weight back. Many times people are, again, they're not doing the correct exercise. Now, some of the exercise too includes stretching and yoga and all this other stuff. A lot of it also that we see that has a lot to do with hormonal problems is the jaw. And a lot of times what you find is the jaw is out of whack. And a lot of girls that develop these hormonal problems that have to be put on the hormone pills or the birth control, they also have TMJ. They get the clicking. Ask any of these girls that got put on my jaw clicks all the time. My jaw is crunching and stuff like that. Because the way that the jaw fits together, that affects the way that the cervical vertebrae, especially the brain stem. And what happens is the brain stem, as it comes directly out of the brain, C1, C2, it goes directly to the genitals, goes directly to these hormonal organs. And so there's a huge relationship between how the jaw, the brain fits together. So many times it's not even just the hormones in terms of what we're eating, what we're not. It has to do with how the brain works. And if you're pinching your brain because of where your head is, so what do you do for that? You come see your massage therapist like me. You see your chiropractor. You do your stretches. You do your cervical decompression, TMJ work, going to see a good orthodontic to get your bite splint made. Dr. Dory Freeland, who is in Oxford, is it Oxford? Dr. Dory Freeland, she is a orthodontist, but does it the correct way in terms of it's not about putting your teeth in the right place as much as it's putting your jaw in the right place. And if your jaw is out of whack, then really forget about your teeth. The teeth come later. It has to do with what happens in the rest of your body, because your brain comes out and then controls the rest of your body. So your hormonal organs, including your, again, uterus, ovaries, and male's testicles, prostate, all these things are related to these hormones. We're also talking about the thyroid. We're talking about your adrenal glands. We're talking about, you're talking about your pancreas, which is your insulin, leptin, all of these things. We're also talking about the brain chemistry of dopamine, serotonin. There are many people that are also put on not just hormonal pills, but are also put on whether it be antipsychotic medication or antidepressant medication. And it has to do with how their body's functioning. And again, the basics of what you eat, what you do, what you don't do. Sleeping, all of these things are huge in relationship. How do I change my hormones? How do I change these things? You change these things through behaviors and diet. And that's how you change it permanently. That's how you fix what was set up wrong. And again, it could be set up wrong because what you were eating as a kid, your parents didn't know any better. But as you get older and older, you can figure these things out. You can come to see a person like me that can help you to figure these things out. We can do a combination of whether it's some of these send-away tests or it's my QRA testing, and we can find out naturally how to. Now, again, let's go back to normal birth control. How do I keep from getting pregnant? Well, number one, don't have sex. And number two, use condoms. Those work, okay? They don't break. And number three, this other, which is looking at your ovulation, and you can only get pregnant during those days. Now, again, sperm can lay dormant for 3 days. And so knowing your timing, the timing method really, really works for people who know how to work it and know how to do it, okay? So, and then another question, when should you take vitamin A or vitamin D? You can take them any time of the day. But in particular, vitamin A and vitamin D are fat soluble, and I would take them with protein. So I would take them at breakfast. Sometimes you can take things without a meal, but vitamin A, vitamin D actually they combine with protein better. So a good protein breakfast, whether it be your shake or your eggs or this or that, usually someone's having some sort of protein for breakfast. It works, it absorbs a lot better with protein. And that is vitamin A and vitamin D. When you really look at what the research basically says is we really shouldn't call it a vitamin. It's a hormone. Vitamin A and vitamin D is a hormone. It's essentially utilized like a hormone, and it helps you to utilize other hormones. So again, the whole thing about birth control is all about your hormones and all about regulating those hormones. And yes, it's about preventing pregnancy or wanting to get pregnant. And as I said before, many people, by preventing pregnancy, they have crippled themselves of being able to get naturally pregnant, or even, let's say, you can do in vitro fertilization, and they have and they can't hold on to them. I got many women who have had years of their birth control, and then the thousands and thousands and hundreds of thousands and tens of thousands of dollars, and they implanted that egg, but their body can't hold on to it. Their body, they miscarry. And that can have a lot to do with what was done hormonally before with the birth control pills. So, word to the wise, if those that are on it find a way to get off, find a way to adjust it. And if you are thinking about it, not the best idea. And especially if you're a parent for a child or a teenager, there are better ways to do that, and better ways to do that can also prevent some later problems that they will thank you for, or they will be upset with what the choice that you took away from them. I know it's a controversial issue, and children need to be taken care of, and that's even the children that are to come. And I totally respect people having children when they're ready and children that are wanted. And so family planning is extremely important, but pre-planning is very, very important, and it's your body, and what happens to your body is under your control. And again, they present it as, oh, it's everyone does it, it's fine. I'm telling you, it's not fine. And there are so many huge amounts of people that it was not fine. It caused a lot of problems. And these are problems that you end up in the hospital with this problem, and the doctors will not ask and even think that your heart attack or your stroke or your deep vein thrombosis or whatever, they're not aware of this research. They read it or they didn't read it, or they just don't put two and two together. So you'll stay in your birth control pills and you're still at risk. So till next time, this is Jason Eagle, your Natural Health Authority. Thank you. Bye-bye.